infestations are causing multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is an infectious disease. And as we treat the infections that cause multiple sclerosis and the symptoms of multiple sclerosis, people recover. So today what I'd like to do is talk about a couple of well-done studies. They are double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, and we'll talk about the relevance of that. But these researchers, they gave this specific anti-parasitic drug called Levomazol to MS patients, and I'm going to share what they discovered from those two studies. If we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha, and I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. I've had the amazing privilege to coach over 600 students in the Live Disease Free Academy, helping them to build a game plan to treat these infections to get their life back. So we've learned a lot, and I'm really trying to help get the word out about how these infections, these parasites, are involved with MS. So if you love this research, if you find it interesting, please share it with others as we get going here. Please help me get the word out. These are very important studies, and we want to see more research going into these areas, and you guys can help get the word out. If you enjoy listening to my trainings live on YouTube or on Facebook, then just make sure to join. Just make sure you guys can. Yes, awesome. There you are. I know it takes a couple of minutes. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Live Disease Free, and hit the notification bell so that you will know every time I go live. And I go live on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock Pacific. So the topic today, again, is looking at a couple of well-done, long-term, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies where researchers gave MS patients either a placebo, a sugar pill, or they gave them Levomazol, which is an anti-parasite drug. It treats worms. We'll talk about that later. So for those of us that are not into research a lot, these studies are helpful because when they're double blind, that means that the researchers and the people that are taking either the sugar pill or the parasite drug, they don't know what they're taking. And the scientists that are assessing them and monitoring them, they don't know if whoever they're monitoring or assessing, they don't know if they're taking the sugar pill or the actual parasite drug. So it helps to take a lot of biases out. So these are randomized controlled studies, which are really helpful. And they're over several years. The first one I'm going to share is over 3 years, and the second one was over 4 years. So Levomazol, we'll talk more about it, but it is an anti-parasite drug. And what drives me crazy is that we know for sure that it's an anti-parasite drug, but in chronic disease, we're always, or I should say, our standard of care likes to focus mainly on, something that is immune modulating, or we have chronic diseases where we have autoimmune disease. So we're kind of trying to, instead of focusing on infections that could possibly be really causing havoc for our immune system, we're focusing on the immune system, and we really need to treat the cause, and that's the whole difference. So I can see you guys are joining in. Hello. Make sure to type your questions in the question box, and please share this video with other people. Get some more people involved here so that we can get this word out. So the first study that I wanted to talk about is a 1982 study. So let me backtrack. Originally, there were some really small studies, like just a few people. They were not controlled. They didn't really notice a difference with giving MS patients this drug, Levomazol. And so then eventually we have this, the ones I'm going to share are just 2 placebo-controlled double blinds, and they're over a longer period of time. So they would be much more useful. So the first one I wanted to share with you is a 1982 study published in the Journal of Neurology, and you can look it up. The title is Modulation of Immunity in Multiple Sclerosis, a double-blind Levomazol placebo-controlled study of 54 patients, or that part of it I added in. There's 54 patients that participated. So it's Modulation of Immunity in Multiple Sclerosis, a double-blind Levomazol placebo-controlled study. That's the title of the study. And they collected data between January 1976 and September 1979. Again, 54, they had more people enrolled, but with studies, they ended up with 54 people that participated. And they were working with patients that had both relapsing remitting and progressive multiple sclerosis. So again, the patients were blind. They weren't blind, but they did not know if they were taking a sugar pill or if they were taking the parasite drug. And that's what blind means, is that the person who's taking it, they don't know what they're taking. That way, we don't get this placebo effect where we think we're taking the pill and actually we're not getting benefits. So that takes a lot of biases out. And let me see here. So at first, they gave every day, they gave this parasite drug, Levomazol, to the patients, the ones that were getting it, that didn't know they were getting it daily. They were getting a daily dose for a full year. And then after a year, they were getting a dose once a week. And they continued that. So this is a 3-year study. And what they found is that the drug was tolerated really well. And we've seen this too, when our students are taking parasite drugs, they may have times where they feel a little bit of little nausea. Sometimes people get skin rashes. I have thrown up before once because I didn't eat enough food, but normally they're very, very well tolerated. And a lot of these adverse effects that we would get are really effects of the parasites that are dying. So just skin rash, nausea, and occasional vomiting, those are the only adverse effects. And again, when we say vomiting, that is very rare. In the way that we work with our students, they don't have a lot of vomiting with it because we make sure we eat and we do the prep phase first. So these are people that literally just took the medication. They didn't follow all the steps in the academy. They didn't reduce the food to these parasites. They didn't support the body. They literally just took a pill once a day for a full year, and then they took it once a week after that. So they found that this drug restored T cell function. So T cells are a division of our immune system, and those are one of the immune cells that we target in the disease-modifying drugs of multiple sclerosis, which is not good. We need our T cells. So they found that this drug seemed to restore T cell function. This double-blind controlled study found that both neurological function and disability became significantly worse in the placebo-treated patients. So when they finished the studies, then they could look to see, okay, who had the sugar pill, who had the actual treatment, and they found that in those that had the sugar pill, that they had much more both neurological function and disability became significantly worse. But in the treated patients, they remained fairly stable in the Levomazol treated group. So during this study, both the annual relapse, I'm just going to grab some water here. I got a tickle in my throat. All right. So in the study, both the annual relapse rate and disability score remained more stable in the Levomazol treated patients with severe disability. So those would be the ones that had more of the progressive multiple sclerosis. So although their results were not statistically significant, the researchers suggested that while they're waiting for more effective treatments, especially for progressive multiple sclerosis, that long-term Levomazol therapy could be useful in patients with multiple sclerosis. So make sure that you type in your questions about these studies or about just information that you want to know about why we're going down this path of treating parasites. The second study, 1990, in the Italian Journal of Neurological Sciences, this was a 4-year double-blind study of Levomazol in multiple sclerosis. So again, double-blind meaning the scientists, researchers, they didn't know if their patient had a sugar pill or the drug. And the patient didn't know if they had the sugar pill or the drug. And this went over 4 years. So they had 41 patients completed the study, and about half of them were treated with Levomazol only once a week. And the other half were in the placebo group. If a patient had an attack, an MS exacerbation or an attack, they would stop treatment and they would be called a negative result. So they'd be pulled out of the study with a negative result. In this study, some of the common adverse effects, again, would have been nausea, insomnia, dizziness, agitation, constipation, and diarrhea. And at least one of these side effects were present in about 2/3 of the patients, but rarely more than one was present at a time. And any of these adverse effects never caused a patient to stop the study. And the study did not include, so this second study, the one in 1990, did not include progressive multiple sclerosis patients that are dealing with progressive multiple sclerosis. They were just dealing with relapsing remitting. But the crazy thing is that this study, in this group treated with Levomazol, 8 patients had an attack during the 4 years and 14 didn't have an MS attack. So only 8 patients had an MS flare and 14 did not. And then if you look at the placebo-controlled group, 14 patients had an MS flare-up or exacerbation or attack, and only 5 didn't. It's almost the exact reversal or close to it of results. So the difference in the two groups were statistically significant. So I know when I was back in university, we have to take all our results and you have to put them through a bunch of different formulas and test to see if it is a significant difference. And in this study, they found that it was. So all of the patients in the Levomazol treatment group did not have an MS attack during the study. And also they did not experience worsening of their neurological scores during this trial. So that's really, really important. And we'll talk more about the findings of this study because there's a few things that I want to talk about. So their conclusion, Levomazol significantly reduced the number of MS patients with acute relapse during the 4-year period of the treatment. And just wanted to share that in both of the studies, both of these controlled studies that I shared with you, they did not have any serious effects, adverse effects from this drug. So it was well tolerated. I think there was one patient that had a decrease in their white blood count, but otherwise they were really well tolerated over this period of time. So what is Levomazol? Levomazol it was first discovered to be an anti-parasite drug in 1968. It is really helpful in treating human roundworms, which can get up to 14 inches, and some of them can get even bigger than that, and also hookworms, which are really nasty. And they have found that it showed evidence that Levomazol is an immune modulator in 1971. So my question is it really modulating the immune system, or is it that when you treat these parasites or make their life miserable, that they are not thriving, that we have relief on our immune system and our immune system goes back to normal? That's what I personally think. There could be but if something is killing worms, then maybe that's why we're seeing the benefit. It's like common sense, but sometimes we don't use a lot of common sense in science. So this drug has also been used in various types of cancer. It's also been helpful for rheumatoid arthritis and also lupus and many other different types of autoimmune type chronic diseases, which is consistent with what we're finding is that all these conditions are caused by infections, and very often worms are involved, much more often than we realize. So I just wanted to go to your question. So let me backtrack also with the Levomazol. So Levomazol is a parasite drug treatment. It is on our list of what our students, like they first get ready to treat. And then when they're ready to treat by following the Live Disease-Free Eating Plan and supporting the body, then they will take samples of many of these treatments and they will go to they'll get them from their doctor, and then they'll go to a practitioner who can do some type of energy testing to see which of the treatments are most helpful for them. So in this presentation, in this training that I'm doing right now, I'm not saying that every MS patient needs to take Levomazol. I'm not saying that at all. In our experience with the Academy students, a very small number of students are testing well for it and are using it. The nice thing with this study is that it confirms what we see. Our students are passing a lot of worms. And so you can see that that's probably why it's really helpful. And there's a lot to this. It's the skill level of the person doing the energy testing. It's whatever parasites we have. So we don't see a lot of students testing well for it. And I'm not saying that it's not going to be one of the leading helpers for treating MS. We don't know, it's too early. But we're using other parasite drug treatments more often, I should say, that are testing well more often for the students that are not just dealing with MS, but serious neurological diseases. So it's not just Lyme disease. It's not just Borrelia, Bartonella, Babesia, all of those Lyme or vector-borne infection types of diseases that we have to deal with. There's this huge parasite component. And I first became aware of it through the work of Dr. Klinghardt, studying under him, and then Dr. Simon Yu also. And that's how we've learned, and other doctors too, but that's how we've really learned a lot more quickly. And Dr. Alan MacDonald, the significant role that parasitic worms play in not just multiple sclerosis, but Parkinson's and ALS and PLS. And as I teach, so I just want to put it in perspective that if we just pop this one pill, like these people in this study, they had an improvement, but what do we want? Do we want just an improvement, or do we want our life back? And so if that's the case, then what we found is just popping a parasite drug does not give us our life back. Probably because of the doses we're taking. They're safe enough for us, so they won't make us sick, but sometimes they're not strong enough for these really large worms. So they will make their life miserable, sometimes kill the smaller ones off, but we have to use strategy, and we do that in the Live Disease-Free Academy. So we follow the eating plan, the Live Disease-Free Eating Plan, decreasing the total carbs to those parasites that love the carbohydrates, the sugar, carbohydrates, etc. That's their best food. And then we support the body in various ways. And then when we're treating, our students are testing well for at least 3 to 5 parasite drugs at one time. So remember, we're dealing with a severe dysbiosis. We're really out of balance. So we need to understand that just popping one pill is not going to help us to be cured of any chronic disease. It's bringing this chaos in our microflora or microbiota that's inside of us and bringing it back into balance, decreasing the bad microbes, increasing the good, which involves treating worms and small parasites, flatworms, roundworms, small parasites, bacteria, fungi, and other microbes. So getting those bad ones down, building back the good, using a holistic approach, and that is how we're recovering from not just MS, but all chronic disease. And people that have MS, usually they have more than one disease if they've been using the disease-modifying drugs for a while. And so that's how we know that it's all the same. It's like, which infections do we have? Where do they like to live? And we have to treat them. So that's the key. So I'm going to go to so the way we spell the drug is leva. I'll just spell it. So LEVAMISOLE. It's not readily available. I don't know if it's available in the United States. That's a frustrating thing. And I've talked about ivermectin. There's other drugs too. And ivermectin is a restricted drug in Canada. And it is so incredibly helpful for so many different people if you need it, right? I'm not saying everyone, right? But if you need it, it's a really helpful drug. I called our Canadian government and I asked, why was it not available in Canada? And I said, was it because of some terrible adverse reaction? They said, no, just because the pharmaceutical company found that they just didn't have a market for it. It's like, what? There's a huge market for it. There's no money in it. And that's where you guys might be asking, well, if these studies were done so long ago, why are we not researching this? Well, who can afford to spend hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, researching a drug, an old drug that is very, very cheap, no patent, can't patent it? Who's gonna put a bunch of money into researching that? That's the sad reality of where we're at. And that is why we're not treating infections in chronic disease. So really help us get the word out. Please share this information and start to research yourself. So Levomazol is just one of the parasite drugs. So Brian, that drug, I know you are a wellness champion. So if you go on the medication resource page, you'll see that's listed there. And you'll, with all the other drug treatments too. So you'll see it listed there. But I found it really fascinating that over 4 years, giving MS patients this drug only once a week. So that's not even effective to totally wipe these worms out, but that it really was measurable, the difference in less attacks, acute attacks in relapsing remitting, which is amazing. All right, so I'm going to go to your questions. Hello, Jeanette. Thank you so much. Sending me hugs from South Florida. I wish I was there. Absolutely. Hello, Valerie. Hello, Facebook user. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Dana. Julie. Yes, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Mark. Hi, Pam. You were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2009. A year later, you were diagnosed with multiple muscular dystrophy. Pardon me. And over the year, your eyesight has gotten a lot worse, but you feel that it's the only thing that's progressing with the MS since the treatment you've been on for the past 4 years. What do you think? So I haven't worked, it's really interesting. I haven't worked with a lot of students that have, nobody that has muscular dystrophy yet. But what I've learned from all these other chronic diseases that are incurable, I would really suspect that there is probably an infection or infections that are causing the muscular dystrophy symptoms also. If it's true for all the other diseases, then it is likely true for that also. I would bet on it. If I was a betting person, I would for sure. So you have to make the decision, all of you that are listening, you have to decide, am I going to continue down this path? That's a decision I had to make 30 years ago. I was 28 years old and I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and I thought I was a super healthy person. And when I went to the experts, they gave me no hope. They said I would be completely disabled in time, sometimes more quickly than others, depending on how the MS would progress. But when I started learning about infections, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a plan. But I knew in my heart that that would give me a better option than just become disabled, completely disabled in a time with multiple sclerosis. So I chose that other path. And by the grace of God and a lot of work on my part, I have been able to treat the infections well enough to live an amazing, active, full life. Better than I would have otherwise because I didn't know what I was living with. I didn't know what I was carrying in me. And we're continuing to learn more and more all the time about these parasites, about how to treat them better. But you have to come to that place, Mark, where you have to decide, am I going to continue on this path of living with these horrible diseases, these horrible symptoms, and taking these disease-modifying drugs, which are really suppressing our immune system. So we're dealing with all these terrible infections, and instead of treating the infections, we are suppressing our immune system. Does that make sense to you, right? Watch my masterclass training. Make sure to start going down this path. If you're new to the work that I do, I have a ton of videos on YouTube. Start to watch them. Learn about the eating plan. Next week, I'm going to talk about the Live Disease-Free Eating Plan again. I think it's time to revisit the Live Disease-Free Eating Plan to answer your questions. So make sure you bring your questions about the eating plan for next week, same time, same place. But watch my masterclass training and learn more about these infections. I also have a playlist on YouTube, Live Disease-Free, about the infections, about the eating plan, and start to make changes. And you're going to start to see that you're going to start feeling better. simply by decreasing the food to the infections and supporting your body. And then as your belief system builds up, you're going to say, okay, wait a minute, I am going to take a different path. I'm going to treat these infections. I'm going to get my life back. And, that's pretty serious to have both muscular dystrophy and multiple sclerosis. My heart goes out to you. I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this, but honestly, you're the only one that's going to be able to change it. And I'm not sure which treatment that you're using, but all of the treatments for multiple sclerosis, they suppress our immune system. There's not one of them that will treat the infections. So we will become more and more disabled in time. Hello, Valerie. How can you get this? So Valerie, the purpose of this is not to say, hey, everybody run out and get Levomazol. It is a prescription. You have to get it through a doctor, and you only use it if you test well for it. And we don't have good stool tests, but we can use the energy testing that the integrative practitioners use. You can bring this research to your neurologist, to your doctor, but unfortunately, it's not part of their standard of care. In certain countries, like where I live in Canada, they're not allowed to write prescriptions for parasite drugs unless they do a positive stool test, and the stool tests do not come back positive. So that is our dilemma. So this is where we first need to create awareness. So there are people that are practitioners that do listen to my videos. We have nurses, we have a doctor taking the academy right now. And so as there's more and more awareness in the integrative and also in the medical community, and we just need to start talking about it in groups, in the Facebook groups, just talk about it. Hey, I just heard that there was this 4-year study where they gave MS patients this parasite drug and they had significant improvements in them, or less attacks, significantly less attacks. So we need to start the conversations, and the more demand from us, then we can bring change, but we're the only ones that can bring change with that. What I do in the Live Disease Free Academy is I help my students access practitioners and the pharmaceutical drugs that they need to recover. And it is challenging. It's not easy right now, but that's what we do. Thank you. Yes, I'm well. Levamizol is Levamizole. Hello, Rick, watching with Marianne. Yay, awesome. I hope to support you guys sometime. And hello, Tracy. Hi, Irene. So again, this drug is not readily available. It's pretty hard to come by. Unless you're working with a practitioner in certain countries, it's available. But this is how ridiculous it is, and this has to change. So Janae, the book, I'm so glad that you read my book, but my book is for the general public. It's really to help create awareness about these infections and how they are causing chronic disease. But you have to follow the steps that I have in the academy. So the book is not just for it's not just for MS. So it's for people that don't have chronic disease. So for example, with the eating plan that I've listed in the book, and I say that if you're dealing with really significant chronic disease, you want to omit all grains, and just make sure to watch my videos, and please reach out. I'd love to support you. So we will put a link to my masterclass training for anyone that, let's say you've watched my videos, you believe this, you totally get it, and you want a game plan to treat infections, then make sure to watch my masterclass training, How to Recover from MS. And it's not just MS, we have students with all kinds of other conditions. Watch that. And if you want to become a wellness champion, then you can reach out through filling out a form and connecting and starting this journey to recover. Awesome. So Facebook user, you're excited to be with me on this road to recovery. I don't know who you are, so you have to share your name. It just says Facebook. Hi, Sherry. You do not have a good doctor. That is the biggest problem, because doctors are upset you don't take your depression medication. You're very sensitive to it. We have to understand that, let's say, our neurologists, they are experts in the MS disease modifying drugs. That's their expertise. If you find that, or if you believe that that is your answer, then that's where you go to get that help and you get those treatments. If you don't believe that that is the answer, then we can still work with our neurologist. They can still monitor us like as we're improving, and this is where you have to decide if you want to do an MRI or not, because with contrast or not, you need to research all these things. What are the adverse effects? So we have students that find me that don't have a diagnosis yet. They're like, I know it's infections. I've got many symptoms of MS. I'm not waiting for a diagnosis. I'm going to treat these parasites. And they recover quite quickly. So we have one student that just recovered after his first treatment cycle. So he was in the 90-day program, just finishing it, the academy. He still has to treat a few more cycles, but he is virtually symptom-free. He loved to do marathons before. He's back to working out again and practicing. So the sooner we catch these infections, the less damage they will do inside of us, and the quicker we can recover. It still takes work, but we can recover quicker the sooner we treat them. And that's what we do in the academy. All right. So does this drug go through the blood-brain barrier? That's one thing I never checked. I know it's metabolized by the liver, but that is a really great question, Brian. I was trying to find research about it, and it's really hard to find research about it. It's almost like it hasn't been totally scrubbed from the internet, but there's not a lot of easily accessible through Google, and I'm going to be looking through other areas. But I'm not sure if it crosses the blood-brain barrier. I'm really not sure. It definitely would work in the intestines where those hookworms would be. Like sometimes these worms, like tapeworms, for example, they'll live in our intestines. Sometimes they'll actually move into different organs. And sometimes it's the immature forms, the larvae, that move across the blood-brain barrier and are causing problems in our central nervous system. And also it's the very small filarial worms that cause problems too, that Dr. Alan McDonald found. If you haven't watched his video, make sure to do that. You'll find that on our livediseasefree.com page, livediseasefree.com, under research, under parasites. There's a direct link to his lecture. It's in Vimeo. Watch it. It's so exciting. And that has been really, the parasite drugs that treat those small worms have been very helpful for the MS students that we're working with that are dealing with MS, recovering from MS. So that's consistently helpful. And yes, there are a few that test well for Levomazol. So if we could get more studies going on the Levomazol, and what would be really nice, not just Levomazol, but on these parasite drugs, if we could, and this is where we need money for that too, but to do like a double-blind controlled study on using more than just popping a pill, but lifestyle and treatment of infections of parasites, because we have a lot of anecdotal recoveries, which is awesome. You can find them on our website and you can find them on our YouTube channel. But we want to start to have studies where the doctors and we want more research in this area. Absolutely. But the problem is there's not a lot of money in it, and that's our dilemma. So those of us that are sick, we're not going to wait for the research. We're definitely going to get better. All right, so with that, I'm going to let you guys go. Next week, I will be back at 5 o'clock Pacific on Wednesday, and I will be talking about the Live Disease-Free Eating Plan. I know that a lot of you have questions about it. Make sure to bring your questions, and I will answer them. This is a very powerful eating plan. Why? Because when we have symptoms, whether it's fatigue, we maybe get sick more often, maybe we have sleep issues, we have mood issues, maybe we're dealing with significant chronic disease, but wherever we're at, it's because we're out of balance with the microbes that are inside of us, not just in our intestines, but even in our blood, even in the central nervous system, depending how sick we are. And so as we follow the Live Disease-Free Eating Plan, we're feeding the body, but we greatly reduce the food to the infections that are making us sick. And we start to notice that we start to feel better, like significantly better, like almost like we're taking a drug better if we get the carbs low enough. And then so that means that the inflammation is starting to go down. And then with that, as the inflammation is going down, then we have that symptom improvement because the infections are less active, inflammation goes down, and we start to notice significant improvements. And we've had a lot of students sharing their very significant improvements. We still have to treat these infections. Absolutely. We have to if we want to get our life back. But before we start treating, we have to weaken them. We have to make their life miserable. They are not going to die if we follow the Live Disease-Free Eating Plan, but we're making their life more miserable and they will be easier to treat. And then we do use a holistic approach. We do use multiple different types of strategies to treat. So with that, I'll see you on Wednesday at 5 o'clock Pacific, same place, same time. Take care and bye-bye for now.